The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show. Yeah!
Hi, and welcome to the Pool Guy Podcast Show. In this episode, I'm going to be joined by Scott Roberts. We're going to talk about a lot of different aspects of purchasing a pool route and if this is something that's right for you. So if you're looking at getting into the swimming pool industry, I think you're going to find a lot of great insights from this podcast. Pool Service Pro. Open a Leslie's wholesale account today and receive wholesale pricing on products you use every day. Leslie's Pool Supply offers convenient locations that are open 7 days a week. Another great benefit of opening a Leslie's wholesale account is Leslie's referral program. Get referred to a customer looking for weekly pool service. Save time and money and grow your pool service route and become a Leslie's Pro. So I'm joined today again by Scott Roberts of National Pool Route Sales, and he's what we would call a pool route specialist. At this point, he's been doing this for a better part of his career now, I would say. How you doing today, Scott?
Hey, David. Doing well. Thank you. How are you?
Good. So we've done a few of these now, and I always go back to you because I would consider you the expert on pool routes and the pool industry. You had a route, you had various businesses, and if there's anyone that has insight for this kind of business and your decision in buying a pool route and all the things that it entails, I think Scott Roberts is the perfect person for this. So we'll just jump right in, Scott, and I'll ask you the first question here. Maybe you want to just give a 1-minute summary of your history. I mentioned a few things, but coming from you might be better.
Sure. Okay, David. Thank you. Well, since you're asking, I guess my history would be I was in the pool business for 7+ years. Started out really small, thinking I had a great idea to get into the pool industry. It turned out just to be a very big endeavor with growing it to hundreds and hundreds of pool accounts, getting into the repair aspect of it, and then into the renovations market. Ended up having like a super center with everything from our own leak detection division to having our own chlorine tanks and selling wholesale, and it just ended up being a great overall situation. When I eventually sold out of being in the pool industry from that aspect, the founder of National Pool Route Sales that I had known for years and I'd sold some routes through from time to time, Charles Baird, he was kind enough to take me in, have me handle Florida for any buyers coming into the industry. We have a listing team already, so we needed somebody very experienced on the buyer side coming in, and I do think that's what's been particularly successful for the buyers who purchase routes from us, is that they're not just buying a route from somebody who's selling a route, or selling routes. They're buying it from somebody who's experienced and has pretty much the answers to the test that they're about to take.
And then that leads into the next question, of course, because this is kind of a mystery for a lot of people that are new to the industry. They've heard about buying a pool route. I'm sure they've heard about it as a way to start the business. But what exactly is buying a pool route, and what exactly does National Pool Route Sales, and NPRS is the initials for that, do for the buyer? And if you're interested in selling, what do you do for someone who's selling?
Okay. Well, I guess we'll start with selling then first. We'll get that out of the way because it's pretty simple. Just if somebody is in the industry already and they like to sell some of their route or all of their route, if they're retiring or if they're just downsizing, if they're just looking to move to a different area, or if they want to jump into maybe pool building, so they want to sell off part of their route or all of it, we could sell off their service route. Really any size from about 20 accounts that they might have or greater. We've sold routes with over 1,000 accounts. We will take their listing, we'll market it, we'll handle everything for them, handle the contracts, just do everything. We hold escrow, everything's done in-house. We don't farm anything out like that. We have everything in-house, been around about 40 years now. So we'll get it sold and we'll get them the most money possible, most likely more than any of our competitors because of our experience level. As far as on the buyer's side, that's where we're definitely specialists and do a lot for buyers. I would say anybody that's looking to get into the pool route industry is going to be anyone from an owner operator, where it could be just a husband or a wife or a male, female, or a husband and wife or boyfriend, girlfriend team, or just a couple. And they could be servicing pools. They'll be cleaning the pools, which means taking the debris out of the pools, whether it's brushing, netting, vacuuming, things like that, brushing towards the main drain so that all the debris gets picked up in the filtration system and stuck on the filter with the clean water returning to the pool. Taking all the debris out of the pump baskets, skimmer baskets, things like that. And then they'll be testing for water chemistry, which is going to be something that we'll make sure that they get very well trained on, so that before they're on their own, they're trained on the ways of chemistry. And there are 5 basic chemistries that they'll be learning, along with other algicides and things. But they'll have a good test kit, and they'll know exactly how to test the water, which is important, and then balance it, how much to add before they leave. So when they leave the customer's home, the customer has a safe and swimmable pool experience until they come back the next week. And then they're going to be charging monthly for that, charging the customers monthly for that particular service. There'll be additional things that can be provided for different revenue streams. The easiest of which would be just the basic parts, filters, O-rings, skimmer lids, baskets, auto cleaners, things like that. On top of that, you'll have more advanced repairs that involve plumbing and electrical, which will require more of a specialized license to do so. Or you could have someone that has that specialized license do it, and you work out a profit split. These are things that I will discuss with them in full detail, obviously, if they're working with us.
Yeah, so I guess to put it in perspective for someone who's new to the industry, the normal way you would get accounts is to advertise on Google or Yelp. Then you would go out there and bid it. Then you may get the account, you may not get it. You're spending the money on advertising. And then if you land maybe 2 or 3 accounts, you're building up your route. So to purchase the pools, these are established pools from someone else, and there's a price to there's a value to these pools because of the fact that someone had already acquired them. Maybe it's a tight route. The customers have been there for 3 or 4 years. And so the price they're paying is for the value of someone else building this up and then selling it. Is that kind of like a summary of the difference between growing it and buying the pool route? And you can buy any number of pools, depending on the size of the route that's for sale. Is that correct?
It really is. That's a perfect way of putting it, David. To add to that, I would say if you have the money available and it's just sitting in your bank, or, I'm not a financial advisor, but I do make investments personally over the years. And one thing I could say, I watched the stock market, plummet as of, in the last year. And, you sit in there watching your 401k or whatever it is go down. The investing in yourself is something that should be your strongest investment, I always feel. So if you can invest in yourself and you buy a pool route versus starting from scratch, from zero, you're instantly going to make the money from day one, even during your training that's in the contract, okay, that we provide. And what's nice is if you do this correctly, between 8 and 14 months is when you should be paying back your investment for the entire purchase, but you made money the whole time, as opposed to when you start from zero, you have nothing and you're chasing money. You're waiting for the next, sales call. You can go 2, 3, 6, 9 months with barely making anything if you do it that way. It doesn't make much sense. Some people have to do it, unfortunately, because they don't have the capital involved. But if you have the money, purchase a route. It's definitely the way to go.
Yeah, and I would agree with you. If you have money sitting in the bank, you're losing. Well, technically, 8% inflation is not accurate. You're probably losing a lot more money than that by not investing it. If you can get a return on your investment in a year and a half, I consider that a really solid investment anywhere, because if you put the money in the stock market, your return on investment is 40 years, basically, if you were going to use that as retirement. And I always tell the pool guys that this is the time why you're making money, why you have the income, why you physically can do the work to make as much money as you can and use that to offset in the future when you can't do all these things, when you're older and you can't work. And so I think buying a pool route, if you have money in the bank, if you feel confident that you're going to be successful, and this is very similar investing in a business. I guess that leads us into the second question here, or the next part of the question is, what's the difference with someone buying a pool route from, say, someone privately that's selling it on Craigslist, or there's a sign at the supplier, buying it from another pool broker, and buying it from national pool route sales?
That's a great question. Definitely, I would say buying it on. Let's break that down a little bit. Buying it directly from Craigslist or something privately. Look, maybe it works out great. Maybe it's great. Maybe it's a winning situation. I don't think that's always going to be the case, and I just hear the horror stories about it. Not just because I sell pool routes, just really just common sense would tell you that You're buying something from somebody that, that's listing it privately someplace, and very often they're very negotiable and this and that, they'll do whatever. They just want to sell off their garbage half the time. That's really what I feel. They're selling off routes, just things, problematic customers, that the ones that aren't paying. So they'll just take whatever they can get for it half the time. I don't think it's really the best way to do it. There's really no guarantee involved. What happens when they just block your number and never take your phone call again, and you're stuck with customers that are not paying you? What do you do? That's why people buy pool routes from a reputable broker. Now, getting as far into that, there is no other company that can compare to National Pool Route Sales as far as, 40 years in the industry, the same industry. This is all that we've done for 40 years. Only pool routes. We haven't sold a lawn route, anything else, nothing. We don't sell real estate. Nothing. This is what we do. Okay. This isn't just an extra thing that we're doing on the side to make more money. This is all that we do. So I look at it. I think a good scenario would be if you go to the doctor and you have a great primary care doctor, right? Okay, good. You've got a great situation there. You're getting really good, treatment on certain things that you need, right? The primary care doctor, let's say that somehow you're diagnosed with the heart disease and you need a heart surgery. Okay. Who are you going to go to? A cardiologist who that's all they do for a living, and they've been schooled for years that that's what they do. They're specialists in it. They're, and your life's on the line, right? So who are you going to go with? The primary care doctor, who's probably fantastic at, antibiotics when you need it, maybe giving you a Z-Pack. Hey, earwax, hey, I'm going to that primary care doctor. Had a good experience. But are you really going to let the primary care doctor do your heart surgery? No, never, not in a million years. It's the same thing, in our opinion, with the pool route sales business. We're the originals. Charles Barrett founded this industry about 40 years ago. He set up all the guarantees, everything that these competitors are out there doing. They're trying to piggyback off of what we've been doing. Fine, fair enough. That's business. But we are the ones that created it. We're the ones that have been doing it for 40 years. We have the best routes, in our opinion. We turn down a lot of routes that we're not interested in. But that's what it comes down to. I feel that we are the cardiologists, technically, of the pool route sales industry, and the others, unfortunately, are more like the primary care doctors.
And I should also emphasize your experience, because I do a lot of real estate deals and I deal with different agents all the time. And, some agents don't even know what a septic tank is when I ask them a question. And I think experience also doing what you're doing is something that should be part of the equation. Going with a private seller or another company, they don't have the experience you have. You've been doing this long enough to be a specialist. And I think we should emphasize that key, that National Pool Route Sales has people on staff like you that have the most experience. And that's an important part of making any kind of deal.
That does have a big value. Thank you for mentioning that. And it really is true. Think about it. Like I mentioned earlier, I have the answers to the test that you're about to take. There isn't anything that I haven't screwed up in this industry, and I've had every success that there is. I've made every mistake, and I've had every success. So learn from it all. There's no fee for all of our mentoring. It's included in your package when you purchase, and we will be there. You'll have my cell phone number here, in Florida, especially here, to contact our other agents in other states. You'll have that. You'll be able to contact them. It does matter. I mean, when you want to hire somebody, when you want to do marketing, I could tell you exactly what to do, how much to pay, where to place the ads, what to say. When it comes to marketing, I mean, I grew wildly for many years. I just, there's no reason I can't just explain what to do. It'll save you a lot of money and a lot of headache and heartache. Thanks for bringing up that point, Dave.
Yeah, and we should also mention that any investment has risk. We're not going to say that if you buy a pool route, you're going to be successful automatically. Just like if you buy a real estate deal or do a deal, maybe that property isn't going to be successful. However, the pool route has value because you purchased it, who knows, 8 or 10 times, 12 times each pool gross income, monthly income. And so there's value when you purchase it. So there's actually value in your investment. So we should emphasize that also, that if you, for whatever reason, don't like it or want to sell it a year from there and you kept everything together, you still have your investment intact. Is that a fair assessment of there is value in after you purchase it also? It's not like you put the money in and then you have to try to get the money you put in back, but there's actual value in the business.
Good point. Yes. And I think a fair thing to tell everybody listening would be that if you do this, most people give things at least a year, right? They're not going to try this out for a month and say, hey, the heck with this. People aren't usually that crazy, okay? So people are going to do this for a little while, 4 months, 6 months, a year. I very rarely get people that ever try to sell less than a year. It's usually 5 years or whatever or more. But let's say somebody sells in a year. Within that year, if you just did your route properly, just not even trying hard, you will be larger than you were when you started because there's so many reasons. COVID, came in and it brought up in Florida, I know, new construction permits for new pools being built went from an average of maybe 7 to 8% up to 21, 22% in growth. A lot of people jumped into the pool construction industry. They jumped on the bandwagon. They started building pools. Hey, I'm doing this for 10 years. I'm going to build pools. They either abandoned their service routes or they sold them off or they downsized. There was with all the people moving to different states, like let's say Florida, right? People moving here like crazy. There's a void in pool service. People can't find good pool service anymore. So it's for many years it's going to be a very good time. You haven't missed anything if you get in the pool industry now.
And that's a kind of a segue into the next part, is that if you are a seasoned pool professional, 5-6 years in the business, and you wanted to expand and maybe get a tight route in the area, but you don't have time to be going out there bidding, going out there advertising, what would be the benefit of them buying a partial route, let's say 20 or 30 pools?
Good question. Well, I would say probably a few reasons. One, probably to maximize, you really need to maximize every truck that's out on the road, right? So whether it's your own truck, you want to maximize, your workload. You want to be full time. Obviously working half a week and making half the potential. But for every employee that you have out there, you need to maximize those employees. Bring everybody to full time if you can. Get everything you can, out of the employee in the right, in a good, fair way where they're making the most money possible, because they'll be less apt to be searching around for something else if they're satisfied, right? Two would be seasoned pros, as you mentioned, quote unquote. I would say they don't really have to learn how to maximize all the revenue streams from each account, probably as much as somebody brand new might, right? They'll be able to, let's say they picked up 20 or 30 accounts. Picking up 20 or 30 accounts for a seasoned pro, like you said, is going to have a lot of value instantly. Instant cash flow in many ways. They can start marketing to them right away for renovations, potentially, maybe for pressure washing, screen repair, all different types of things that go along with having the captive audience customer already. That maybe somebody brand new will have to take time learning and integrating into their business plan.
Yeah, and I guess I should mention, you mentioned screen repair. Anyone outside of Florida has no idea what you just said there, because there's no screen in pools anywhere but Florida, which you guys are lucky. I mean,
sorry about that. Yeah,
you guys are spoiled over there with screened in pools. But I think buying a pool route.
Hey, wait, David, hold on, David. There's a business. Let's go. Me and you. We're going to start screen repair in California.
We should do that. We should start putting them in here. You mentioned the instant revenue by buying a pool route, because if you were to advertise and market and spend all that time out there, there's no guarantee you're going to land the bid when you go out there. And you may be, when you buy a route, you have to kind of do the math if you're going to buy a partial route. I think, is it worth putting the money out, or is it worth doing the footwork? If you have 60 pools and you want to get to 80, it may be mathematically sound just to buy it at that point instead of, trying to get accounts in your area. And it's going to be spread out. You're not going to get a tight route. And when you buy a route, chances are the pools are pretty tight. They're not going to be 10 minutes between one and the other, unless you're in a rural area, of course. But if you're in an area like Florida or where I'm at, and you buy a route, it should be pretty tight. So that's an advantage there also. Very
true. Good point.
So let's talk a little bit about the guarantee the National Pool Route has. We mentioned that buying from you, there's some advantages. One other advantage that we can talk about is there's a guarantee of sorts when you buy from National Pool Route sales. You want to go over some of the details?
Yeah, so just the way the guarantee works, and it's been set up for many, many years, and we've sold over 14,000 pool routes now. So this is ironclad, and it's very, very solid. And we help with, and if there is a guarantee issue, which I'll get into in a second, we're there to help with it. We're part of the transition where we help out. We don't go away. Okay, we take your calls. So basically, the way this works is You purchase a pool route. Let's just give an example. You buy 80 pool route, 80 accounts. Okay, those 80 accounts become the subject of the escrow agreement, which is the contract. Okay, sellers, it's the seller's responsibility contractually to transition the pools to the buyer. It's not the buyer's responsibility, and they don't know how to do that yet. The sellers are the ones who have the relationship with the customers. They have to send out the transition letters, which we provide very good templates for. And there's a whole strategy involved, which I'm a part of. Okay, our team is a part of a National Pool Route Sales. Whoever your person is, me or Kurt or Tyler or just anyone that you're dealing with here, everybody's really good. So you'll get great treatment. So as far as the guarantee goes, let's say that somebody cancels service. Okay, it's just always going to come down to the reason for cancellation. But if people sell their home, it's basically a 3-month guarantee period after you take over. Let's say you took over and the takeover date was March 1st. Okay, great, 80 pools. You're first going to be out there training, and then on your own eventually doing your own invoicing. Beginning in month 2, but all the money's yours in month 1. I'll explain all that in further detail when we are working together. If somebody cancels service, the seller has to replace that lost account within 30 days. And if they can't, it has to be refunded to them. And we hold back money in escrow, which is our own escrow department. It's not some lawyer somewhere and you got to deal with that and worry about it. And hey, what do I do? Who's on whose side? Nothing like that. Okay. It's all held in house. Okay. We make sure deals are fair. All right. So money would be refunded to you for every penny that you pay for that lost account. You just can't go out there, obviously, David, and skip someone's pool for 3 months and never service it. It turns green, and then expect the seller to be on the hook for that. But for most reasons, it's a seller's responsibility. But fair is fair. Okay, it always comes down to the reason for cancellation. But that's why this is unlike any other industry that you buy from. There's actually a guarantee in place.
You explained it really well, so people can understand that there is something that is going to make sure the seller is selling you a good product and also protects the buyer. And that leads into the next question here. Whenever you're buying a house or buying any kind of business, maybe you're buying a market or a fast food restaurant, you always ask the seller, why are you selling? And I think that's a valid question for any buyer to ask the seller. So what are some key questions if I'm the buyer and I'm approaching you to get a pool route? What would be some of the questions that you would think would be important for me to ask the seller?
Well, really from start to finish, from sending over our data sheets to getting the first conference call. First, it'll start with a conference call, and during that call, I'm on the call, or one of our salespeople is on the call with the buyer. Okay. First of all, I can answer. I can lead I'll be leading the call always, but I like the buyer and the seller to have natural interaction. So there's questions going back and forth, but I will always game plan before the call and make sure that buyers are going to ask the right questions. But obviously there aren't any bad questions, but I'm going to ask. I'll make sure the questions are specific to what we're doing, and I'll ask questions if I don't hear them asked for the buyer's benefit. Okay, so that everything gets covered one way or another, whether the buyer's asking all the questions or if I'm interjecting, it all gets covered. But as far as what should be asked, you just want to know about, maybe, I always think that the payment histories are very, very important. Okay. Payment histories of the clients. Okay. What the percentage, let's say you're billing out $100 a month for service. What percentage of the $100 will be the expenses? People like to know what their profitability is going to be. Maybe how long have they had these clients? Is it, 1 year? Is it 30 years? And maybe how did they get started? There's many questions. I really like to build a relationship, during the conference call between the buyer and seller. I want people to, because it's who you're working with. I need to see how the people get along. Sometimes it isn't a great fit. We don't have to do a deal. It's got to be right for the buyer and the seller, and it has to feel right for me personally if I'm doing it, because I need to be able to sleep at night feeling good about everything that's going on.
Yeah, and that leads us into another question. If you're listening to this podcast and you're interested in buying a pool route, you may be thinking, well, how do I know that I'm actually a good candidate for this? I've never cleaned a pool maybe, or I have a pool. How would I know myself if I'm a good candidate to buy a pool route?
I love that question. So probably I'd say 95% of the people that contact us have never cleaned a pool in their life. They've, Nothing. They don't know anything about pool chemistry. So you need no experience to do this whatsoever. You're going to get all the training you need by the time that you're on your own, believe it or not. Cleaning pools is not difficult. Right, David, right? It's not too difficult?
No, it's not rocket science.
Okay. So with that being said, a good candidate is just anybody that is going to know, is just very reliable. Okay. Reliable and friendly. Okay. If you treat customers like family, well, hopefully you like your family. Okay. A family you like. Okay. If you treat them like family that you like, or like a good friend, then you will be just fine. This is not a huge decision in a customer's mind. Think about it. Okay. They have so many other things to think about in life. They're not overly worried about their pool guy or pool girl. Let's face it. As long as the pool looks good, which is easy to do. Okay. It's easy to keep a pool looking good. It's just water. Okay. You're going to balance the water, keep it clean. If you're honest, ethical, you do the right thing, you return people's calls, you just care about them, you listen to what they're saying, you're not going to lose accounts really. It's just not the way it works. This is a very, very simple thing to do, a simple business. But you mentioned a good candidate. I'll mention a little story that's like that I have spoken to him recently. He's a buyer. It was right before COVID happened. What was that? Early 2020, right? Mike and his son Cole, up in the Seminole County area, up in Florida, there, like by Orlando, kind of. They were buying he wanted to buy a pool route, really for him and his son, really for his son. He was going to be there helping him and everything like that. And they started out with maybe 120 accounts or something like that. And as soon as they took over, COVID hit. Right? COVID hit. Hey, guess what? Mike, the father, got COVID. Wonderful. Okay. Mike, actually, the reason why this story is kind of cool is I'd spoken to him, throughout, and he was the first candidate, the first person who received the monoclonal antibodies treatment in Florida. The first person. He got it. And it actually healed. He recovered beautifully from it. But when he recovered, he got back into, helping his son. And it was just beautiful to hear the story, how he turned it into 400 and something accounts. And, he's going. It was the best decision that they made. In fact, if you look at our, if you Google National Pool Route Sales LLC, you can read all of our reviews. They're really all positive reviews. And you'll see Mike and Cole, and he even put a picture of his son in there. It's really cool. In the review, and you can read about his story there. Candidate, they had no experience in the pool industry, and look at what they're doing. They're world beaters now. If you just listen to what we say, because other brokers, I'm sorry, but they can't do anything for you but shake your hand when the deal's done. God bless them. That's all they can do. They're not super experienced in helping afterwards and mentoring. We will help you. We're going to mentor you. We're going to be with you. It's just it's ongoing growth and scalability.
Yeah, and I agree with you there. One of the points you mentioned is that sometimes the pool, we overthink the customer. Like, for instance, I have pest control for my rentals, and I've been using the same company for 5 years. As long as they show up, do their job, I get no complaints, there's no problems. They're out of my mind. I just think of them when I get the bill, and that's the only time I think about them. And they do their job. I've had the same company for over 5 or 6 years now. They do multiple properties, and it's like, if they do what they're going to do, it doesn't bother me at all. They may raise their rates here and there. I don't even notice sometimes. And that's kind of how it is with the industry. I think we as pool pros, once you're in it, you overthink it. Getting into it, you're overly cautious sometimes and thinking all these things that don't exist. You're kind of making up scenarios. And at the end of the day, if you're, like Scott said, if you're doing your job, you're going to be a good candidate, because at the end of the day, they just want their pool swimmable, and they want to jump in their pool, not have to brush algae or call you, hey, what's this? Why didn't you come last week? These are all important aspects of just any business that you may get into. And I guess we can end this one with just give them the information. If they wanted to contact National Pool Route Sales, or you in particular, I don't know if that's how you want to handle that contact, where would they reach out to? How would they contact you?
Yeah. So, I mean, our general office would probably be the best way to do that. Yeah. So it's just going to be National Pool Route Sales, and the best phone number to reach us at there would be toll free 1-877-766-5757. And you could just ask for extension 115. If you're in Florida, that's Scott Roberts. That's me. Or you can email us also, or just go to our website. There's ways to contact us through there. It's www.poolroutesales.com. But if you call the office, you could ask to speak to Kimberly McNinch in the office. She can direct you to, you're going to speak about the state that you're in and the area, and then she'll put you right through to the person that you need to speak with.
Great. Well, I hope the listeners found this helpful, and you're going to stick around for another segment here where we're going to talk about the pool industry in general, and it's not quite as specific geared towards purchasing a route, so we're going to do that as a separate kind of talk. But I appreciate your time here with this and really shedding light on what buying a pool route is and what you actually do through national pool route sales. So I appreciate that, Scott.
Always here to help. Thank you so much, David.
And I've done a few podcasts with Scott Roberts in the past. You can find those by going to my website, swimmingpoollearning.com, and on the banner, click on the podcast icon. Just type in Scott Roberts into the search box. That'll take you to the other podcasts that I recorded with him, and you can listen to those at your leisure. And if you're interested in the coaching program, you can learn more at poolguycoaching.com. Thanks for listening to this podcast. Have a great rest of your week, and God bless. Pool Service Pro. Open a Leslie's wholesale account today and receive wholesale pricing on products you use every day. Leslie's Pool Supply offers convenient locations that are open 7 days a week. Another great benefit of opening a Leslie's wholesale account is Leslie's referral program. Get referred to a customer looking for weekly pool service. Save time and money and grow your pool service route and become a Leslie's Pro.